Greetings everybody, it's Anne again from the Numerical Nexus, and after a long time of preparation, I'm very pleased to announce that we are finally starting our media series on underrated plural representation. Now, the way that this series is going to work, like a basic overview, is that we will take select few pieces of media, whether they're books, films, series, or what have you, and explain how they represent certain types of plurality or more than one, or the dynamics in various ways. Now, the movie that we are starting out with for right now is Inside Out, mainly because its sequel, Inside Out 2, has been very successful since its first release in the summer of 2024. So for those of you who need a recap, Inside Out is a 2015 Disney Pixar film directed by Pete Docter that revolves around the life of Riley Anderson and her emotions that reside in her head. In the first film, we are introduced to joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. And in the second film, directed by Kelsey Mann, by the way, we are met with anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui. Now, for the purposes of the video and its more so main focus on plurality, I will be focusing on the first mainly because my various points will get across better if I just focus on the emotions as a whole, and the first film helps with that a lot. Now, in the first film, we see joy and sadness. The movie focuses on their conflict mostly, as well as Joy's conflict with the remaining emotions. A big change in Riley's life involving moving her entire family from one location to another causes her to experience some significant life changes. And as the emotions navigate this life change themselves, Joy is very emotion-centric in the sense that she wants to be the dominant emotion in Riley's mind, creating mainly happy memories and shaping her personality in a mainly happy way, despite the fact that the move is not inherently solely or even predominantly happy element. Now, as the movie progresses and joy and sadness begin to understand one another's perspectives, the emotions tend to get along for the most part very well at the end of the movie, after Joy realizes the value of sadness and thus every other emotion that Riley has in her psyche. In the second movie, all of Riley's core emotions are thrown for a loop when new emotions, anxiety, embarrassment, ennui, and envy are put into the picture, as Riley is a teenager now and enters the next stage in her life. In the second movie, I will note that there is much more material to work with as a whole because we see different sides of most of Riley's core emotions and even her new ones as well. So that's honestly pretty much the two movies summed up in less than 5 minutes. Now, the meat and potatoes of this movie fall within the realm of plurality. And for those who need a recap on what that is, plurality is the state of multiple self-aware, sapient, and/or sentient autonomous beings sharing one physical body. And now, if we look at the baseline of this definition of plurality, Inside Out already covers it at the most fundamental level because we see the emotions check all of those boxes, given that Pixar kind of needs emotions to be personified and have depth to them. And we do see moments, various moments throughout the two movies where emotions do show other parts of themselves, other emotions that they do not represent. For example, we see joy be heartbroken, or anger be pleased, or fear even be calm. And we even see sadness smile like multiple times throughout both films. We know that they are sentient because of the fact that they are emotions themselves, and they do feel the emotion that they represent, as well as emotions that they are not representing corely. We also see they are sapient because of the fact that they can form ideas and opinions and even think of plans. Anxiety's entire thing in the second movie is making plan after plan after plan, even though they are very unrealistic because it is the nature of anxiety. But we see that her and all other emotions are capable of thought, and so they are sapient. And they are autonomous because they are not directly controlled by each other, nor are they directly controlled by Riley. Now, speaking of Riley herself, it may actually seem like she is not an autonomous being, given that through the lens of the movie, it is assumed that the emotions are controlling her every action and every thought directly. Heck, even her memories are managed and dictated by her emotions. However, in the second movie, we are introduced to a concept that is also introduced in that universe called a sense of self. And so we do know that Riley is self-aware, making her, in her own right, also a headmate. Now, the reason I bring up the possibility is mainly because of the fact that how the movie portrays her is very similar to how medium plurality is experienced. Medium plurality is basically a form of plurality on a spectrum, where someone who is in a median system is neither fully a singlet nor fully multiple, in the sense that individuals are completely different or fleshed out. Medium plurality may be described as different aspects of the same person or different parts of a whole, as Jazz has explained in the intro to Plurality video that was put on this channel a few months ago. Now, I will note that headmates in a median system are not solely parts of a whole if they do not think of themselves in that way. It is possible for headmates to be both parts of a whole and wholes in their own individual rights. And we see this with the Inside Out franchise. The emotions are parts of Riley. Even though they are their own being in their own right, they are autonomous and self-aware, and they have many differences among them, they are all connected to Riley in that they are different aspects of her, or at least in the perspective of the movie. Riley is like the central piece of the puzzle, and all of the emotions fit into her in some way, shape, or form. Now, I will note that Inside Out, besides being a good representation of medium plurality, it is also a good representation of what headspaces can look like for systems. Many systems may have a headspace that looks similar to Inside Out's control console, for example. It is a helpful tool in visualizing what fronting may look like in systems. And for anyone who needs a recap on fronting, it is simply when headmates actively control the body or feel it. Now, another thing to note is the importance of memory in specifically the first film, the importance of memory in the first film, where memories can shape an entire person's outlook. We already know in psychology in this world that memories are priceless to a person's psyche, and they contribute much to a person's identity, their opinions, personality traits, and other things that make them who they are. So, with that out of the way, I would also like to mention the existence of headmate relationships. Not relationships as in strictly romantic, but relationships both negative and positive, like platonic and familial, and even antagonistic relationships. For example, the relationship between joy and sadness in Inside Out is antagonistic. Joy is very hostile towards sadness, and sadness can't even seem to fathom why, because of the fact that, well, she's simply being herself. Now, it is absolutely possible for headmates in systems to not be very fond of each other. A headmate can do almost anything that a person can do. Pretty much the only thing that a headmate can't do is have a completely separate body or brain access, given that they share with others. But anyways, we also see relationships between joy and anger, surprisingly to me personally, in the second film, where anger has a sort of parental relationship with joy. Even for a fraction of a second, it seems like a paternal relationship of some sorts. And we personally speculate that the reason why that relationship was shown was because of the fact that Joy initially showed anger. She showed anger at all of the other emotions, always complaining all the time, and that she herself was overwhelmed with everything that was going on at the time. And so, because of displaying anger, she may have resonated with the actual emotion anger, and causing him to comfort her in a way that is similar to a father comforting his child. This is important considering that familiar relationships can and do exist within plural collectives. There are cis kids, mainly known as littles, young headmates. There are parents of certain headmates, either through source-related reasons or otherwise. And there are even siblings or system siblings. We actually have quite a few pairs and groups of siblings in our collective. Now, another major thing about the Inside Out film series that I wanted to emphasize is the lesson of working together and the emphasis that the film series puts on the different aspects of Riley's mind working together in order to lessen the load that life can often give both singlets and systems and everyone in between. Now, I say this because many systems do not final fuse into one individual. A lot of systems choose to take the path of healthy multiplicity or healthy plurality in order to live healthy lives. And it's completely okay for a system to choose how they wish to heal. Becoming one individual is not the only way for a plural to live their lives. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of the representation of plurality out there, even if not in the form of a stupid horror or thriller film, is the idea that in order for a plural to be healthy, they must fuse into one individual, which is blatantly offensive and inaccurate considering how many systems out there have functional and healthy plurality, and I'm actually very happy. The reason why Inside Out stuck out to us is because of the fact that the emotions need to learn how to work together, even with all of the differences and even differences of opinion. Despite all of the conflict that they have, it's not like they can ignore each other or block each other out, and the movie doesn't really give any logic toward becoming one big singular emotional entity. So the only other option, the only other canon option, I guess, is for the emotions to learn how to work together. And that is parallel to systems who have headmates who learn to work together in order to navigate the body through life events and other hurdles that the outer world can throw in their way. So when it comes to medium plurality in system relationships, not necessarily romantic, and the importance of working together, Inside Out covers all three and does so in a way that doesn't portray plurality as a completely negative or completely positive thing. It shows it as a state of existence, one that can be messy and scary and frustrating, but also sweet and rewarding, and also quite interesting, which is what plurality, as well as every other state of existence, is. It's a mix of a bunch of different aspects and traits, and it's subjective to whoever is experiencing it. It can be mostly positive or mostly negative, or it can be a mix of both of those traits. But the way that Inside Out portrays plurality as not just a singularly good or bad thing, but just complex and multifaceted, it's more than our system could have asked for. And what's sad about this is that we believe that the directors of Inside Out and Inside Out 2 were not intending for the film to portray plurality as well as it did. It was mainly to explore emotions and other parts of the mind in a singlet. But the thing about positive plural representation, or decent plural representation, is the fact that a lot of it seems to be accidental. A lot of it is accidental, we believe, because the films and series that do portray plurality intentionally do a horrible job at it. There's something about using a marginalized community for a Halloween gimmick that just sets us off. It gives a bad taste, leaves a bad taste in our mouth. And we know Halloween is coming up, and it's absolutely scary what Hollywood has done to the plural community over the years, but it's nothing to celebrate. Now, this is all I have for you today regarding Inside Out and Inside Out 2. But circling back to the whole accidental representation thing, there is a series that intentionally portrays plurality, and it does it in a relatively decent way. It's called Moon Knight. It's a Marvel series, and the reason why we're not covering it in our video series is because we are mainly focusing on media that is plural adjacent, or media that accidentally portrays plurality and does it well. Moon Knight does portray plurality well, but it's supposed to. It's doing its job because, well, that's what it was intended to do. But we do recommend looking into it, giving it a try, and even if it may not be your taste or just not in your genre, as far as representation of plurality goes, it is actually very decent. It portrays dissociative plurality specifically, but keep in mind that there's another series out there, an animated series, that also portrays dissociative plurality as well as spiritual plurality. So both types in one series. So stay tuned for that because it'll be coming up very soon. Now, I would like to thank you all for watching this video, and as always, have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night.